to help voters prepare for the upcoming November 5th, 2024 election. This presentation outlines the statewide ballot propositions. The city's goal is to provide clear and concise information about each measure to ensure informed voting decisions. For additional information, please visit the California Secretary of State website at www.sos.ca.gov. Background and history of the initiative process. In a special election held on October 10, 1911, California became the 10th state to adopt the initiative process. That year, Governor Hiram Johnson began his term by promising to give citizens a tool they could use to adopt laws and constitutional amendments without the support of the governor or the legislature. The new legislature put a package of constitutional amendments on the ballot that placed more control of California politics directly into the hands of the people. This package included the ability to recall elected officials, the right to repeal laws by referendum, and the ability to enact state laws by initiative. For more information, visit www.sos.ca.gov. November 5th, 2024, Statewide Ballot Measures Overview. Proposition 2. Authorizes bonds for public school and community college facilities. Legislative statute. Proposition 3. Constitutional right to marriage. Legislative constitutional amendment. Proposition 4. Authorizes bonds for safe drinking water, wildfire prevention, and protecting communities and natural lands from climate risks. Legislative statute. Proposition 5. Allows local bonds for affordable housing and public infrastructure with 55% voter approval. Legislative constitutional amendment. Proposition 6. Eliminates constitutional provision allowing involuntary servitude for incarcerated persons. Legislative constitutional amendment. Proposition 32. Raises minimum wage. Initiative statute. Proposition 33. Expands local government's authority to enact rent control on residential property. Initiative statute. Proposition 34. Restricts spending of prescription drug revenues by certain healthcare providers. Initiative statute. Proposition 35. Provides permanent funding for Medi-Cal healthcare services. Initiative statute. Proposition 36. Allows felony charges and increases sentences for certain drug and theft crimes. Initiative statute. Proposition 2. Authorizes bonds for public school and community college facilities. Legislative statute. Authorizes $10 billion in state general obligation bonds for repair, upgrade, and construction of facilities at K-12 public schools and community colleges. Provides funding for new facilities to improve school health and safety conditions at existing facilities for classroom upgrades. Expands eligibility for financial hardship grants for small and disadvantaged school districts. Provides higher percentage of state matching funds to schools demonstrating greatest need. Requires public hearings and performance audits. Appropriates money from general fund to repay bonds. Proposition 2 continued. Summary of legislative analysts' estimate of net state and local government fiscal impact. Increased state costs of about $500 million annually for 35 years to repay the bond. For more information, visit www.sos.ca.gov. Proposition 3. Constitutional right to marriage. Legislative constitutional amendment. Amends California Constitution to recognize fundamental right to marry, regardless of sex or race. Removes language in California Constitution stating that marriage is only between a man and a woman. Summary of legislative analyst estimate of net state and local government fiscal impact. No change in revenues or costs for state and local governments. For more information, visit www.sos.ca.gov. Proposition 4. Authorizes bonds for safe drinking water, wildlife prevention, and protecting communities and natural lands from climate risks. Legislative statute. Authorizes $10 billion in state general obligation bonds for various projects to reduce climate risks and impacts. $3.8 billion for safe drinking water and water resilience. $1.95 billion for wildlife prevention and extreme heat mitigation. $1.9 billion for protection of natural lands, parks, and wildlife. $1.2 billion for protection of coastal lands, bays, and oceans. $850 million for clean energy. $300 million for agriculture. Proposition 4, continued. Prioritizes projects benefiting disadvantaged communities. Requires annual audits. Appropriates money from general fund to repay bonds. Summary of legislative analysts' estimate of net state and local government fiscal impact. Increased state costs of about $400 million annually for 40 years to repay the bond. For more information, visit www.sos.ca.gov. Proposition 5 allows local bonds for affordable housing and public infrastructure with 55% voter approval. Legislative constitutional amendment. Allows local bonds for affordable housing for low and middle income Californians or for public infrastructure including roads, water, and fire protection to be approved by 55% of voters rather than current 2/3 approval requirement. Bonds must include specified accountability requirements, including Citizens Oversight Committee and annual independent financial and performance audits. Allows local governments to assess property taxes above 1% to repay affordable housing and infrastructure bonds if approved by 55% of voters instead of current 2/3 approval requirement. Proposition 5, continued. Summary of legislative analysts' estimate of net state and local government fiscal impact. Increased local borrowing to fund affordable housing, supportive housing, and public infrastructure. The amount of increased borrowing would depend on decisions by local governments and voters. Borrowed funds would be repaid with higher property taxes. For more information, visit www.sos.ca.gov. Proposition 6 eliminates constitutional provision allowing involuntary servitude for incarcerated persons. Legislative constitutional amendment. Amends the California Constitution to remove the current constitutional provision that allows jails and prisons to impose involuntary servitude to punish crime. Prohibits the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation from punishing incarcerated persons for refusing a work assignment. Allows incarcerated persons to voluntarily accept work assignments in exchange for credit to reduce their sentences. Proposition 6, continued. Summary of legislative analysts' estimate of net state and local government fiscal impact. Potential increase or decrease in state and local criminal justice costs, depending on how rules around work for people in state prison and county jail change. Any effect likely would not exceed the tens of millions of dollars annually. For more information, visit www.sos.ca.gov. Proposition 32 raises minimum wage initiative statute. California's minimum wage is currently $16 per hour. This measure increases that minimum as follows. Employers with 26 or more employees would pay $17 hourly for the remainder of 2024 and $18 hourly beginning on January 1st, 2025. Employers with 25 or fewer employees would pay $17 hourly beginning January 1st, 2025, and $18 hourly beginning January 1st, 2026. Employers with 25 or fewer employees would pay $17 hourly beginning January 1st, 2025, and $18 hourly beginning January 1st, 2026. Thereafter, as existing laws provides, the minimum wage annually adjusts for inflation. In addition to the generally applicable minimum wage described above, current laws establish a higher minimum wage in specified industries. This measure does not amend those laws. Proposition 32, continued. Summary of legislative analysts' estimate of net state and local government fiscal impact. State and local government costs could increase or decrease. This change likely would not exceed the high hundreds of millions of dollars annually. State and local tax revenues likely would decrease. This revenue loss likely would not exceed a few $100 million annually. For more information, visit www.sos.ca.gov. Proposition 33 expands local government's authority to enact rent control on residential property. Initiative statute. Current state law generally prevents cities and counties from limiting the initial rental rate that landlords may charge to new tenants in all types of housing, and from limiting rent increases for existing tenants in 1. Residential properties that were first occupied after February 1st, 1995, 2. Single-family homes, and 3. Condominiums. This measure would repeal that state law and would prohibit the state from limiting the ability of cities and counties to maintain, enact, or expand residential rent control ordinances. Proposition 33 continued. Summary of legislative analysts' estimate of net state and local government fiscal impact. Reduction in local property tax revenues of at least tens of millions of dollars annually due to likely expansion of rent control in some communities. For more information, visit www.sos.ca.gov. Proposition 34 restricts spending of prescription drug revenues by certain healthcare providers. Initiative statute. Requires healthcare providers meeting specified criteria to spend 98% of revenues from federal discount prescription drug program on direct patient care. Applies only to healthcare providers that 1. Spent over $100 million in any 10-year period on anything other than direct patient care, and 2. Operated multifamily housing reported to have at least 500 high-severity health and safety violations. Penalizes noncompliance with spending restrictions by revoking healthcare licenses and tax-exempt status. Permanently authorizes state to negotiate Medi-Cal drug prices on statewide basis. Proposition 34 continued. Summary of legislative analysts' estimate of net state and local government fiscal impact. Increased state costs, likely in the millions of dollars annually, to enforce new rules on certain healthcare entities. Affected entities would pay fees to cover these costs. For more information, visit www.sos.ca.gov. Proposition 35 provides permanent funding for Medi-Cal healthcare services. Initiative statute. Makes permanent the existing tax on managed healthcare insurance plans, currently set to expire in 2026, which, if approved by the federal government, provides revenues to pay for healthcare services for low-income families with children, seniors, disabled persons, and other Medi-Cal recipients. Requires revenues to be used only for specified Medi-Cal services, including primary and specialty care, emergency care, family planning, mental health, and prescription drugs. Prohibits revenues from being used to replace existing Medi-Cal funding. Caps administrative expenses and requires independent audits of programs receiving funding. Proposition 35 continued. Summary of Legislative Analyst's Estimate of Net State and Local Government Fiscal Impact. In the short term, increased funding for Medi-Cal and other health programs between roughly $2 billion and $5 billion annually. Increased state costs between roughly $1 billion to $2 billion annually to implement funding increases. In the long term, unknown effect on state tax revenue, health program funding, and state costs. Fiscal effects depend on many factors, such as whether the legislature would continue to approve the tax on health plans in the future if Proposition 35 is not passed by voters. For more information, visit www.sos.ca.gov. Proposition 36 allows felony charges and increases sentences for certain drug and theft crimes. Initiative statute allows felony charges for possessing certain drugs and for thefts under $950, both currently chargeable only as misdemeanors, with 2 prior drug or 2 prior theft convictions as applicable. Defendants who plead guilty to felony drug possession and complete treatment can have charges dismissed. Increases sentences for other specified drug and theft crimes. Increased prison sentences may reduce savings that currently fund mental health and drug treatment programs, K-12 schools, and crime victims. Any remaining savings may be used for a new felony treatment program. Proposition 36, continued. Summary of Legislative Analyst's Estimate of Net State and Local Government Fiscal Impact. Increased state criminal justice costs, likely ranging from several tens of millions of dollars to the low hundreds of millions of dollars annually, primarily due to an increase in the prison population. Increased local criminal justice costs, likely in the tens of millions of dollars annually, primarily due to county jail, community supervision, and court-mandated mental health and drug treatment workload. For more information, visit www.sos.ca.gov. November 5th, 2024, General Election Information. The last day to register to vote for the November 5th, 2024 general election is October 21st, 2024. All California active registered voters will receive a vote-by-mail ballot for the November 5th, 2024 general election. Your county elections office will begin mailing ballots by October 7th, 2024. Ballot drop-off locations open on October 8th, 2024. Vote-by-mail ballots can be returned by mail at a drop-off location or your county elections office. Vote-by-mail ballots can be returned by mail at a drop-off location or your county elections office. Vote centers open for early in-person voting in all Voters' Choice Act counties beginning on October 26, 2024. Vote-by-mail ballots must be postmarked on or before Election Day and received by November 12, 2024. For additional ballot information, please visit the California Secretary of State website at www.sos.ca.gov. Visit the City of Jurupa Valley website for voter information and additional resources at www.jurupavalley.org.